National News with Lisa Laflamme.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a look at the shape we're in as a country. The census held up a mirror today, and in that reflection, an undeniable reality. Canadians are getting older. Across most of this country, there are more seniors than children under 15. Nearly a quarter of the working population is nearing retirement between the ages of 55 and 64. Still, Canadians over 85 are one of the fastest growing age groups. And in data measured for the very first time anywhere, 1 in 300 Canadians identifies as transgender or non-binary. CTV's Christina Tenaglia looks into what it means to live in an aging nation.
Canada's population of seniors is growing, and quickly. The latest census data shows the number of people aged 85 and older grew by 12% in the last 5 years. That's more than twice as high as the overall growth of the Canadian population. And this same group is expected to triple in the next 25 years, which has advocates like Claude Boivin worried.
With what happened with the pandemic and the long-term care, we're concerned that someday we'll end up there, or some of our loved ones will end up there, and there won't be people to look after us.
That's one of the biggest questions. Who will care for this country's oldest and most vulnerable? And where will they live?
Well, they won't be good options unless Canada makes some big changes. We don't have a national seniors strategy.
The Canadian Association of Retired Persons says almost 96% of their members want to age in their own home. The Prime Minister says his government is helping seniors,
which is why we're making investments in long-term care.
This aging expert says there's a better approach.
Between 10 to 30% of people entering these homes are going there, and they don't need to. They could actually be supported at home with home care.
And for the first time, Canada's latest census measures trans and non-binary populations, the only country in the world to track this to date.
It's a snapshot for sure, but it's not the entire picture.
The data shows more than 100,000 people identify as transgender or non-binary.
The conversations moving forward are going to be around policy and how we move forward in terms of healthcare accessibility and looking at the inequalities that exist in healthcare when it comes to transgender people and non-binary people.
Advocates say this data will offer insight into this historically marginalized population and the data needed to support them. Lisa.
Interesting. Christina Tenaglia reporting for us tonight in Ottawa. Thank you, Christina. For all the polarized opinions on Parliament Hill, tonight MPs came together to declare Russia's actions in Ukraine a genocide.
Motion is carried.
The NDP motion to recognize the atrocities passed unanimously. The government also imposed 200 more sanctions against Russian-backed separatists fighting in eastern Ukraine. Vladimir Putin had a vague but ominous warning today for countries he feels are interfering in Ukraine. Speaking to Russian lawmakers, Putin declared their response will be, quote, lightning fast, saying, "We have all the tools for this." It comes after Moscow cut off Poland and Bulgaria, two NATO allies, from natural gas and oil supplies after they refused to pay in rubles rather than dollars and euros. The impact from CTV's Omar Sachedina in Kyiv.
Russia's state-controlled energy giant Gazprom supplies Europe with 40% of its gas needs. It is now a weapon of war.
It comes as no surprise that the Kremlin uses fossil fuels to try to blackmail us. Our response will be immediate, united, and coordinated.
Anticipating Vladimir Putin would follow through on threats to shut off the taps, the European Commission said today contingency plans are already in place to protect Poland and Bulgaria and blunt the impact of Russia's disruptions. The deepening economic confrontation played out against the backdrop of an intensifying ground battle. Russian forces used tear gas at a pro-Ukrainian rally in the occupied city of Kherson, a day after Russia claimed to have taken control of the entire Kherson region in southern Ukraine. And in Odessa today, another tragic reminder of the depths of human suffering. Yuri Glodin was overcome with grief as he said goodbye to his mother, wife, and 3-month-old baby, Kira. 3 generations of an entire family killed by a Russian airstrike over the weekend. More than a dozen others were injured. Helping the wounded in this war is Selovod Dorofiev. The paramedic is part of a volunteer medical battalion training civilians with first aid to serve on the front lines. It's at a secret location we've been asked not to reveal, at a church in Kyiv.
What do you think about the work that you're doing? I mean, you are helping other people save lives.
If I was in the front line, who will teach this person? And I think it's important too. All members is important person: a mechanic, instructor, logistic, who responds to logistic. It's important too.
Russia's move to choke off gas will have less of an impact now than it would have in the winter when it's needed most to heat homes. Still, it is a dramatic escalation and a wake-up call for a continent which, by its own admission, Lisa, has an excessive reliance on Russian energy.
Such huge implications to this. All right, Omer Sachedina in Kyiv.